There was a time when you could step into someone's home and begin to know them before a single word had been spoken. Their books, the pictures on the walls, the china in the cupboard, the flowers on the table. The chair by the fire with a basket of knitting or mending beside it. Every room quietly reflected the people who lived there. Perhaps that's what people mean when they say a house has personality. It's not about perfection or expense. It's about seeing the traces of the lives being lived within. I sometimes wonder whether that's been forgotten. Somewhere along the way, our homes began to follow fashion almost as quickly as our clothes. Trends came and went, colours changed, becoming ever more neutral. Magazines told us what was in and what was out, and before long it became surprisingly easy to feel that our homes ought to look like everyone else's. But I've never believed that home should be about fitting in. If every house reflected exactly the same taste, how would we ever recognise the people living inside them? For me, a home should tell a story. Not the story of a trend, but the story of a life. When I look around my little 17th century cottage, I don't see a carefully planned collection of things that belong together. I see memories. I see interests that have quietly accumulated over the years. I see pieces that make me smile every time I pass them. In my kitchen, you'll find rabbit teapots lined up together. They aren't there because someone decided rabbits were fashionable. They're there because rabbits have become part of my own story. And every one of those teapots makes me happy whenever I put the kettle on. The shelves in my upstairs hallway are filled with china collected over many years. None of it matches, and I don't mind at all. Each piece was chosen because I loved it, not because it appeared in a magazine, mostly because I happened upon it at a vintage fair or in a charity shop. Together they tell a far more interesting story, to me anyway, than matching decor for a show home ever could. I love old children's books too, not simply for the stories inside them, but for their wonderful illustrations, beautiful lettering, and the sense that they were published to open up worlds of fantasy and joy to their readers. When I hold one in my hands, I'm reminded that everyday objects were once created with imagination and care. That feeling never really grows old. And I've always loved embroidery. Perhaps because every stitch represents someone's patience, someone's time, and someone choosing to make an ordinary object a little more beautiful than it needed to be. Some of my favourite bags were embroidered in the 1930s. Others are patchwork pieced together from scraps that might otherwise have been thrown away. And amongst them is one that I embroidered myself, inspired by those women who believed that making something by hand gave it a value that no shop could ever quite replace. The same is true of the clothes I wear around the house. I often choose simple 1940s house dresses because I love the cheerful floral and novelty designs on hard-wearing cotton and their loose, easy fit. They either just wrap around or pull over the head. There's no zips to struggle with or uncomfortably tight waistbands. I wear them because everyday life deserves beauty and cheerfulness too. Even ordinary mornings can be made just a little more special. One of my grandmother's evening dresses hangs on the door. Another 1930s bias-cut silk satin evening dress hangs beside it. I like seeing them every day. I love the gloriously flamboyant, colourful prints of cottage garden flowers, and they remind me of the women who once wore them, and they quietly connect my home with the generations that came before me. To me, that's a part of what a home is for, not simply living, remembering. Around the cottage are little reminders of the animals I loved. Staffordshire dogs stand proudly on a shelf. There are 1930s pictures of cheerful terriers, paintings of hares, the rabbits who share my home. Even the rag rugs beneath our feet and paws tell their own story. Rag rugs are so easy and therapeutic to make, a wonderful way to use up fabric that's good for nothing else, colourful, practical, and soft beneath both feet and paws. There's a quiet satisfaction in living with things which you make yourself, or which were made by your mother or grandmother before you. Perhaps that's why I find it so difficult to separate making from homemaking. A mended dress and embroidered cloth, fresh sweet peas gathered from the garden and arranged in a pretty vase. These aren't grand gestures, they're small acts of care, and perhaps that's where personality begins, not in buying, in noticing, in choosing, in making, and in keeping. There was a time when people expected to repair rather than replace, to pass treasured things from one generation to the next. To let furniture grow older alongside the family who used it. Those objects gathered stories as the years passed. An old doll's house, a carefully darned sleeve, a patchwork quilt that has lasted because it has been loved and cared for. When things are just replaced, nothing becomes more meaningful. Things in a home become meaningful because they stay silent witnesses to our lives. I sometimes think the most welcoming homes are not the ones that follow fashion most faithfully. They're the ones that quietly reveal the people who live inside them, their passions, their memories, their collections, their history, the animals who've lived with them. Perhaps that's what a home with personality has always reflected, the courage to surround yourself with the things that tell your own story. Because in the end, the most beautiful homes are rarely the ones that look like everybody else's. They're the ones that could only ever belong to the people who call them home.